Uh, I think we have a very wonderful beginning session from Mohan Gupta. We talked about various changes that is happening in this industry. So today's panel discussion is all about power utilities industry in India. See, in the generation sector, we have seen that there is a change in the fuel from the fossil fuel sources to the renewable energy sources, and that has got a huge impact on the industry itself. From the transmission sector, again, building up the green corridor is one of the major challenges to evacuate green energy from the RE-rich states to the other part of the country. From the distribution, they have to tackle the problem of the prosumers, because they are the consumers, they can actually produce their own electricity. But the challenge is that DISCOMs are actually losing revenue from these paying consumers. But in effect, they have also made the necessary provision for them in the evening hours when the sunlight is not there. So that's basically a double shot problems. The consumer is also one of the major market players in this entire value chain. And we have seen that, with the widespread implementation of smart meters, consumers today can actually monitor their energy consumption and shift the energy consumption based on the price signal included in the TOU tariffs. So this is, all about the, value chains and the verticals perspective. But apart from that, Mohan has actually touched upon many things. For example, there is a change in the auto fuel pattern due to the induction of the electric vehicle program in India. Similarly, with a huge influx of renewable energy, which is variable in nature because sunlight and wind velocity is variable. So this actually poses a lot of problems in terms of the grid management. Similarly, on the distribution side, we have seen that there is a huge AT&C losses. How to tackle that? On top of that, there is a carbon emission norms and the sustainability objective nowadays. And also, SLA-based penalty that is under with the introduction of the Right to Consumer Act. So these are all the tackles, business problems. On top of that, there are technological changes as well. We have seen that widespread use of the sensor-based technology attached to plant and grid assets. Then there are IoT devices, AI, ML, and other cutting-edge technologies. So the critical point is that how do we actually utilize this technology for the benefits of the utilities in terms of, maintaining the customer satisfaction, reducing the loss, improving the asset utilization, improving the operational performance, and on top of that, maintaining the sustainability goals. So to answer all these questions, this is precisely the objective of this panel today. And I have a very illustrious panel cutting across all the value chains, transmission, distribution, generation, as well as the policymakers, regulators, funding agencies, and the consultants. So it's a very varied panel. I believe we should have a very interesting discussion. So let me first introduce the panel. So from my extreme right, Mr. S.C.Garg, who is the Chief General Manager of RECL Limited. Then I have Mr. Awdhesh Kumar Yadav, Chief Engineer, Central Electricity Regulatory Commission. Then we are having Mr. Vijay Prakash, Chief General Manager, Engineering from NTPC Limited. Then Madam Kumud Wadhwa, Chief General Manager, Power Grid and National Smart Grid Mission. And next to me is Mr. Subhasish, who is an independent consultant and engaged in industry for last 3.5 decades. So I'll just make a sequence from transmission to so maybe the sitting order is not apt. Maybe we can have a generation transmission related discussion. So sir, my first question to you, Mr. Prakash. So what is your view of that? We have seen that a lot of changes is going on around, and we have the first discussion on that. So what is your view on the changing business scenario of utilities industry in general and generation utilities in particular, sir?
Okay. Thank you, Somenath. I think the changing business scenario has been very elaborately presented by our predecessor. It's a very, very wonderful presentation. And I will speak basically on generation side.
Yes.
So this is just our wish list that we move away from coal to renewables or from fossil to non-fossil. Still we are sticking to fossil fuel. Lot of coal power plants are coming up in India. So NTPC, we have also diversified into renewables. We are doing some R&D into hydrogen. We are doing some R&D into carbon capture. But still we are not moving away from coal. And this is true not only for NTPC, but entire power sector in India. All the central PSUs are adding coal-based power plant. And more interesting thing I would like to tell, just last week or last to last week, there was a news article. Coal India is also entering into the business of thermal power plant. Because why? Because they are thinking that in future, the PLF of other utilities will be low and they'll have surplus coal. So what to do with that surplus coal? To generate power and sell it. So that is the ground reality of generation sector today. We cannot manage without coal. So that is the first thing. We are still adding it. And as a business entity in NTPC, I will say our business is blooming in both non-fossil and fossil. So we have new power plants and a lot of consultancy assignments. So even Coal India will also come to us to set up their own power plants. So business is changing in both the direction for us, in fossil direction also, in non-fossil direction also.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks for this elaborate answer, sir. Madam, my next question, I think it has been touched upon in the earlier presentation also. So you have seen that a lot of influx in terms of renewable energy pumping in the grid. And since it's a very variable in nature, so my question is that, what measures have been taken from the grid management point of view so far in the country today?
Yes, you have rightly pointed out that with the large influx of renewable into the grid, which is a intermittent and unpredictable source of energy, we need to tackle two types of challenges. One is technical challenge, that is in terms of managing the voltage, maybe in terms of managing the stability of the grid, and also to manage the balance between demand and supply. Because we have a large share of unpredictable energy into the grid, how do we manage real-time supply so as to ensure reliable power supply to the consumers? So those are the challenges on technical side. And then there are commercial challenges also. We all know that we need to have day-ahead scheduling. And based on the day-ahead scheduling that has been decided and the actual draws or actual injections that are happening on the day, there is a mechanism, that is deviation settlement mechanism, which is imposing some penalties on the DISCOMs if they are not kind of injecting the power to the extent they have scheduled, or if they are not drawing the power they have asked for. So how do we manage those things? So definitely, as pointed out by our previous speakers, one of the solutions is to have flexible grid operations. So flexibility is going to play a major role in managing the large influx of renewable into the grid. So how do we bring in this flexibility? The flexibility can be brought into by deploying smart grid technologies, that is by deploying ICT for managing bidirectional power flow as well as communication flow to manage the power. So what is this flexibility services about? We have to have ancillary services which are fast response mechanisms. We need to have, because again, flexibility will be required at various time zones, time scales also. Some solutions are required within some sub-second scale or second or minute scales. Then some flexibility services will be required on maybe hourly basis or on day basis, and for some flexibility services will be required on seasonal basis. So the time span of having those flexibility services will also be varying. So how do we bring in those flexibility services? Some solutions can be from energy storage side. We can have pump storage for faster response. We can have battery storage for managing the larger storage requirements for balancing the system. Then we can have demand response, which is a very powerful, say, flexibility source, wherein the consumer can alter the load in response to the price signals given by the utility. But to have that kind of demand response from the consumers, we also need to have policy and regulatory support. We have now time of day tariff introduced for the consumers, but we need to have many more such options in the coming years, in my opinion. That's something that I wanted to
Thank
share.
you, madam. It's really, very insightful and elaborative. Now my next question to Mr. S.C.Garg from REC. Sir, so as a funding agency in the power sector, you have dealt with many distribution sector reforms like Uday, Shobhagya and now RDSS. So you have actually seen a lot of, distribution sector reforms program like, Shobhagya, Uday and now RDSS scheme, right? So, my question is that all these schemes are mainly due to achieve the financial, reforms of the discoms in India. So, what could be the major causes, for this financial distress, in your mind, because you are actually dealing with that for last 1 decade or so, right?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, by seeing the various scheme, you see the condition of our country from 2003. When such scheme in the distribution sector were started, you take the name of RGGY, then the DDGJY, then IPDS, RAPDRP, NEF, all these schemes came up for the betterment of the distribution sector. But the question in the minds of ours remains same, why these schemes could not deliver the most of the things, particularly financials. Here I would like to say one thing, it is not that. We have achieved many things. Now you think about every citizen of the country have the access to the electricity, have the access to the electrical grid. And the power situation in the country, there is deficiency in the non-availability of the power. Power is available. So these are the achievement, although we could not achieve many things. As said, presently we are on the huge loss, our discoms are on the very huge loss side. Approximately 1 lakh crore, you can say 90,000 crore, you can say they are incurring the losses every year. AT&C losses, although AT&C losses are drastically reduced to a certain level in 2000 or 2003 to the level now presently, which are at the national level, but certain discoms are still have much higher loss level. So what are the reasons? First of all, there are 4 or 5 reasons which we can say prominently these are the causes. First of all, the most important is discoms are not getting the actual rate of the electricity at which they are purchasing. Means their tariffs are not revised. Why their tariffs are not revised? The main reason is the political interference to the regulators. This is one of the most important reasons. Regulatory assets are increasing. Our AT&C losses, certainly our system, but the government is taking, efforts are being put in to improve the AT&C losses, but until and unless the political interference, these regulations are set up in right direction, such kind of situation cannot be improved. But pressures are there, pressure groups are also working, this has to be improved. RDSS like scheme is there, and which will certainly we are quite hopeful to address all these problems. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I think some of the problems that you have talked about, I think regulators is, just, beside you. So, sir, Mr. Yadav, from the regulatory point of view, so you see that nationwide implementation of smart meters will open up the possibility to flatten the load curve, right, sir? Okay. With the proper price signal. I think towards this, there is a recent notification from the center that, they will adopt the static TOD tariffs. And they, I think, divided that in solar hour, normal hour, and the, peak hours, right? So how do you envisage this arrangement could actually provide any optimum usage of energy? What is your view in this particular, regulations?
See, I see this as a very welcome step taken by the government of India, because time of day metering means, you see what is the problem we are facing today. We have a large penetration of solar power, and you must be knowing that it alters the demand curve. What we talk about with RE is basically net demand curve. So that duck curve is formed basically when the high RE injection is there. So it poses lot of challenge for integration. Like there is a dip in the curve, net demand curve. So the higher the dip, the higher will be the requirement of ramping up requirements, and higher will be the requirement of thermal power station to bring their lower minimum. So if I have a tariff which says that from the normal tariff I will give you a 20% discount if you are using your load in the solar hours. So this is going to help. It will increase the load in my solar hours, and all my ramping requirements, backing down requirement will be certainly going down, and it will have more and more RE integration in the system. So it's a very moving forward step, and it has to be done in steps like maybe industrial consumers or commercial consumers may be targeted in the initial stage. Then it may be given to some other consumers. Then it can be also linked to the quantum of demand a particular having, because deployment would be a very huge kind of thing. It has to be done in phases. If things are not done in phases, it may be landing in some place which will not be desirable. So it should start in phases, starting from industrial and commercial consumer, then domestic consumer, maybe the agriculture consumers may be the last. But of course that time of day is going to help in this RE transition which we are envisaging for the future.
Correct. But sir, I think the current proposition is across the consumer categories, right?
Probably some dates were decided that from 1st April 24, some applicability will be there. Then it was for certain category of consumers only.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
My next question, I think the last question for this round to Mr. Subhasish sir. Sir, implementation of smart prepaid meters, that's one of the major programs for the distribution utilities. And smart meter data in India is currently getting used mainly for the billing. So, what all other areas do you see the meter data is going to bring benefits for the DISCOM operation?
Thank you. Let me, of course, the policy experts have spoken already. Let me give a slightly different orientation to the whole thing. Imagine in the 90s, the telecom sector. There was one huge monolith, BSNL, and there used to be this instrument lying in your homes or offices, which is just a dumb box until somebody called you. Come to today, you see your phone, it's no longer just a phone. It's far beyond that. You're doing so many things on the device. I think the same thing smart meters are going to bring to the power sector. So ultimately, it's about bringing in intelligence into the grid, into the network. So today, people just have a meter somewhere, they get a bill and they pay. As a consumer, they have nothing else to do. On tomorrow's date, they are going to have systems in place to be able to measure which are the efficient devices and which are the inefficient devices. How to control or eliminate those inefficient devices. How to ensure that your electricity bill is controlled. That is as far as the consumer is concerned. At the same time, for the distribution companies also, it will mean a complete visibility on the network. It's not just about the smart meters at the residences, it's also about all the offices, it's also about smart meters on the transformers and other devices on the network. So the distribution companies will be able to manage their power distribution much more efficiently. And finally, for the regulator, of course, they will have much more real-time data. So the tariff and all that will become more flexible, more dynamic. So these are the excitement things that are going to happen in the future, and I look forward to that.
Absolutely. So what you are saying that, you have got the data ready, to be used, in the benefits in the future, right? Yeah, thanks. So, sir, I think, again, coming to you, sir, Mr. Prakash. Now, we are all heard about, I think, sustainability as a word has been already spoken 10 times in the span of 1 hour. And it's one of the major issues in today's business operation, right? And NTPC has adopted a specific sustainability strategy. I think you named it as Brighter Plan 2032 to address and achieve this goal. So can you please highlight some of the major points of this plan from NTPC?
I guess it's a Brighter Plan 2032 So we have published, means as our strategy in our website, but I think we are doing much more than that. So that brighter plan was about reduction in resource requirement, be it land requirement, be it coal requirement, be it our water requirement, and reduction in pollution loads in terms of CO2 emissions and sulfur dioxide emissions, NOx emissions, enriching biodiversity and everything. But NTPC is a very big company. We have very big presence all across India, and we have a lot of resources. We are doing much more than that. And apart from doing all those things, we are a major input provider to Ministry of Power, Ministry of Environment, and all regulatory agencies. So any new policy which is announced, so we are inputs from our companies taken. So we are doing all the whatever in whatever field means you can think of, we are doing. So everything is not reflected in the brighter plan. And apart from that, like in my previous statement, I told about blooming coal business. So now I will tell about blooming non-coal business also. Yes. So we are doing a lot of renewables. We are thinking of doing pumped storage. We are doing a pilot project on capturing of carbon dioxide from the flue gas and converting into green methanol. So it's a very small project in one of our power stations. But if that technology is successful, we can recycle CO2. So maybe our power plants, even thermal power plants, will be carbon free. And apart from that, we are doing a lot of biomass. So in many technologies, we are pioneering those things. And even in case of use of treated sewage, in the Clean Ganga mission, we are trying to do. So a lot of things we are doing. Thank you.
And why the 2032? Is it a goal that you have to want to achieve by 2032?
Okay, that is our goal. We have declared under a global compact that we have to achieve 60,000 megawatt of renewables by 2032, and we have to reduce our energy intensity. How much primary energy through coal or gas, how much primary energy I use to produce 1 unit of power. So that ratio has to come down by 10% by 2032, 8.5% by 2030. So these are the declared goals. But as I said, everything does not get reflected in that plan immediately. So there are a lot of things going on. So please do visit our websites to keep an update. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Madam, I think next question from me is basically really a quest from my side. Basically, on one hand, we have seen that we have got a national grid integrating all the 5 regional grids that has happened in 2013. And on the other hand, there is a distributed energy resources in the forms of running renewable energy, which calls for a microgrid kind of setup. So these are the two dichotomy. You have the national grid as well as there is a requirement of a microgrid. So how do you actually think of these topological changes and how to address this problem?
Yes, the integrated grid was planned to have the optimal utilization of resources, because we had this coal surplus regions maybe on the eastern side of the country, and load centers were towards the center or maybe the southern sides. So we need to have the integrated grid to manage the power flow from the surplus generating areas to the areas where it was required as and when during the daytime, and it was done on one grid, one frequency basis. Now with the increase in renewable energy, yes, we now are going to have lot of microgrids in the system. In fact, each household can also be treated as one mini or microgrid, because maybe in due course of time, each household will have some solar rooftop, electric vehicle, behind the meter storage in the form of battery, and in addition to that, the grid supply will also be required for managing the nighttime load. So we can say that in due course we will have a loosely coupled grid of various microgrids. So that is the system that we need to manage. And we need to have various policy and regulatory support mechanisms in place to support that kind of system with the dichotomy that you just mentioned. Maybe the step has already been taken to introduce the time of day tariff for shifting the load to and to manage the load curve throughout the day. But further, we need to have maybe tariff options also. We need to have multiple tariff options, different tariffs for electric vehicle charging, and the tariff options to suit customers' requirement. Because again, we will be shifting from the supplier side market to the buyer side market in due course of time. So globally, there are choices available. Then to manage the technical parameters, we may need to look for some more sophisticated smart devices. Not just smart meters, but smart inverters. Yes. Smart inverters that can help in controlling the voltage by managing the P and Q parameters, and all such innovative solutions which can be there. We are having now grid to vehicle kind of scenarios, but also pilots are being conducted wherein vehicle to grid can also be there in the grid. So all those innovative solutions and integration across the power sector value chain will definitely help to manage this dichotomy, and we can have a grid wherein we have integration across the regions for bulk power transmission and microgrids for resilience and reliable supply, as well as sustainable, to meet the sustainable goals.
Absolutely. I think, this is very well said, sir. Madam, basically what you are thinking that, there will be a lot of innovations coming up in this, in this industry because of these changes. And probably for certain times we'll have to have, both these options available for the national integrated grid as well as the microgrid operation. Yes, thank you. S.C.Garg, so reduction of AT&C losses within 12 to 15% level to make SES ARR gap to zero is one of the major two objectives of RDSS program. So what is your view that with the implementation of RDSS, the DISCOMs will going to achieve this objective?
Yeah, certainly. RDSS has two major objectives. One is reduction of AT&C losses, rather below to 12%. We say although 15%, but it has to be reduced below to 12%. And another is reduce the ACS and ARR gap. These two things can be achieved in under RDSS. Provisions are already there in RDSS. For reducing the AT&C losses, the half of the scheme is provided to the smart meter provisioning, and half of the fund is provided to the system strengthening. So if we infuse the money in the system for the system strengthening, so we can replace the conductor, we can replace the poles, and we can make the system reliable so that AT&C losses can be reduced. Further, by putting the prepaid smart meters, we can reduce the AT&C losses by improving the billing efficiency and by improving the collection efficiency. So these two things can be achieved through the AT&C loss reduction front. Now come to the ACS and ARR gap. For this also, the things are going on to make the use of low cost RE power, as madam has discussed and the discussion is going on. So we have to use the RE power. And second is the long-term power, which has been said in the earlier presentation also, that has to be come to the power exchanges. Now presently, almost 80% long-term agreement PPAs are being already happened. Now this all such kind of power has to come on the power exchanges. So the availability of the low cost power to the DISCOM have to be ensured. So this is on the operational front. Now provisions are also there in RDSS for the 2-3 things. One is consumer awareness. So consumer has to be aware about the electricity, to use the efficient devices, etc. And the capacity building of the DISCOM officials. the provisions is also there. So all such things will certainly make it happen to achieve these two objectives. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you. Mr. Yadav, we have heard about a lot of innovative things, in last session also. So, for example, role of energy storage. We talked about a building plan for ancillary power market in India. Shortening the duration of long-term PPA is also one of the major, area that would shape up the power market in India in future. And CERC has a major role to play in all this, right? So, can you please highlight some of the thought processes in these areas, sir?
See, when we talk about the role of energy storage device is basically such an entity. It can be identified as a standalone generating source if it is used for supplying that power to a particular customer. It can also be identified as an element as a part of distribution system. Like a distribution utility can use that ESS or battery storage device to manage its portfolio. Similarly, the energy storage device can also be a part of the transmission element. So if we see the role of energy storage device, it's quite varying. I will give you some examples like when the planning for this 500 gigawatt RE system was being done, the potential sites were identified, like in Rajasthan, 75 gigawatt of potential would be there. So what will be my transmission evacuation requirement for 75 gigawatt if I am using a solar thing? If I am using only solar, then it will be some evacuation requirement. If I am using solar plus wind, so there will be variability which we will complement themselves. So my evacuation requirement will be less. And apart from this, if I am also using that BESS or battery storage, the evacuation requirement would be still less. So that is basically going to serve as a transmission element to reduce the evacuation requirement for any potential areas. Second role, it could be played that it can act as a standalone generator. So for a battery device, what is the input? Input is again electricity basically. So how it is going to solve the issue of its charging? So its various model could be, if an entity is setting up a battery storage device, it may be having his own RE generator, so he can get the charging power from them. Or it can be through tolling arrangement also, like if the generator is having a PPA with some DISCOM can arrange the charging power to that battery and storage. Like off-peak power can be made available to charge that battery, and in peak hours that same power could be supplied to the DISCOM. And the third option could be he can go for long-term tie-up with some other generator from the power exchange or any other generating source to provide that charging power. So basically, a lot of role a battery energy storage device is going to play. One example I will give that in Fatehgarh 3, SECI 1000 megawatt hour battery storage project has been bid out. It's a 500 megawatt with 2 hours battery storage. It has got 3 parts. It has got a merchant capacity which the developer will be keeping with himself. Then it has got a DISCOM capacity of 150 megawatt, which will be a long-term PPA with that DISCOM. And the third one is 150 megawatt. It is earmarked for basically ancillary services to be utilized by the grid operator. So single site 500 megawatt, 3 different utilities. So in the grid integration, it is going to play the role of a power supplier as an ancillary services to support the grid. And again, as a merchant, he can participate in the power exchange, he can go bilateral tie-up, so whatever may be suitable for this. So it has got many role to play. And as far as second question part.
Ancillary market, you're talking about ancillary market itself, yeah.
Yeah. So ancillary market, basically this ancillary market is required to support the secured grid operation, basically. if you see from a regulator perspective point of view, the roadmap for reserves, it is basically kind of reserves. So roadmap for reserves was set up in 2015 itself with a suo motu order which was issued by CERC. It provided for provision of primary, secondary and tertiary reserves. How that primary reserves were being made available, it restricted the scheduling of the generators to its installed capacity, so that whatever overload capacity it has, that can be used as a primary reserves. Then for secondary reserves, there was a regulatory compliance order to all the ISGS that they have to be AGC enabled, basically. So if they are AGC enabled, they can provide secondary reserves. And tertiary reserves was basically supplied through
AGC auto governing control, right?
yeah, AGC enabled, that is automatic control. And the tertiary reserves were made mandatory by RRIS 2015 regulations, which initially was from in administrative mode, like it was taken from the generators. And intent was there that in future it will be procured from the market. So in continuation to that, we already have tertiary market ancillary services regulations, which is effective from June 2023. So already that framework is there. If you remember somewhere in 2020s or 2019, that real-time market concept was introduced.
Yes.
So what real-time market concept was there, it introduced the concept of gate closer, basically. What we say gate closer, this is the gate closer time, no more schedule revision by either the generator or the beneficiary. So what is left with the grid operator now? All the balancing requirement has to be done by the grid operator. And how he is going to do? He is going to do with the market which will be available in the ancillary services. So ancillary services, a lot of things are, all the frameworks are in place, and we will have a lot of, in future, not now, because there, today what we have is, there is resource adequacy problem in the country currently facing. That adequate resources are not there. Whatever capacity, like 234 gigawatt load has already been met. And for a thermal fleet of, all the thermal fleet are almost entirely running at their full capacity. So presently that liquidity issue is there, but future, yes, ancillary market is going to come, and a lot of opportunity would be created in future also.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you. And I think this is very much promising, and we will be going to see a lot of components, part of the ancillary market. I think we have discussed about energy storage, but there are other components as well. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Mr. Subhasish, sir. So how do you envisage, I just prepared a question on we talked about prosumers, right? How do you envisage the prosumer challenge in India? So as a DISCOM, it is the revenue loss from the paying consumers. So what in your view should be the strategy of the DISCOMs?
Actually, my take on this is slightly different. I think we should all remember that we only have one planet. And the way we are going, there's a huge danger that, we might destroy ourselves. So there's no plan B. So if anybody is taking any initiative to bring in sustainability, that should be encouraged. I mean, even if there's a loss of revenue, we should encourage. But keeping aside this point, even otherwise, like Mohan was presenting and he showed, there's a huge increase in the demand which is likely to happen because of use of more appliances, more intelligent appliances, more devices like electric vehicles and all that. So it's not that, because somebody is generating additional capacity through their own means, there will be a huge impact on the overall consumption of power. We will see increase in power consumption over the time. So this revenue should not be such a big, issue for the distribution companies. They have to manage the whole network. That is the important aspect, because the variation in the consumption will be the challenge for them. But otherwise, I don't think revenue itself is going to be a big issue.
Do you also think that it will actually promote DISCOMs to think of their business, probably, energy and non-energy services, stepping up these, solar rooftop, services?
Absolutely, absolutely. Like he was already mentioning that NTPC is also getting into consulting. So this kind of new areas of business will also crop. But beyond that, also, I think the important point is that Today, everything is tariff and that's it, On tomorrow's date, we are going to see more flexibility. You will have different rates in different regions, different locations, different categories of client. So the distribution companies will also be managing their commercials much better.
Correct.
That is the important aspect.
Absolutely. Mr. Prakash, so I think that's a loaded question. So what in your view is the most critical and challenging problems that we envisage in the coming years for the GENCOs in India? Because we are in the crossroad actually because of the transformation going on.
See, there is no unique answer to this question. So, answer will depend on the GENCO you are talking. So, NHPC will have different answer, NPCIL will have different answer, NTPC will have different answer. And for NTPC, we have to have a very tight rope walk, balancing between fossil and non-fossil, safeguarding our investments which we have done till now and which we are going to do in future, in the coming years. Still we are implementing 5-6 new projects. So that is the most daunting task. And if you remember just 2-3 years back, the thermal was almost dead. Nobody was talking about thermal, and it all revived last year because of energy crisis, because of Ukraine war, because of the global rethinking on the energy. And a lot of things have come up. So we are making investments, and again we have to keep our fingers crossed. And secondly, what happens is not only fossil and non-fossil, there is a lot of things, innovations, research and development going on in terms of storage, in terms of hydrogen, in terms of nuclear fission. And the most challenging task is to predict that what is going to come up in future. It should not happen that some disruptive innovation comes and everything else is demolished. So we should not be like HMT or Kodak.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So that is another area of concern. But it's still something which has not come up yet. We cannot rely on that. So we have to proceed with whatever we have right on today in our hands. So that's what we are doing. And you see, we have a capacity addition plan also. Today, NTPC provides 25% of the electricity generated in the country. It's a huge, and for anything, even for nuclear also, we have a national electricity plan, and there is some nuclear capacity is envisaged by 2032. And there is warning, not a warning means there is a alert to NTPC. If that doesn't come up, that we have to fulfill that. So, predicting the means future of the business, that is the most challenging task. Taking a decision which is going to be right in the horizon of 25 to 30 years or more, that is the most challenging task. And balancing between the two, net zero by 2070 plus energy security and growth and economy supporting, that is the most challenging task for NTPC. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I think the basic things will be remain same because it reminds me today is 25th August. 25th August 1867, Michael Faraday died. So we are still actually, bring this legacy for more than 150 years and the basic things has not changed actually. So I believe the basic thing will be remain same, electricity generation, but there will be changes here and there in terms of other areas. Thank you, sir. Madam, so resilient, fault-tolerant and secure transmission grid. That is one of the major criteria for central transmission utility like PGCIL. So, so what I think you have already done that, in your plan, and can you please highlight some of the major steps taken?
Yeah. Actually, for resilient fault-tolerant grid, we need to have sufficient redundancy in the grid. So already in the planning, that N-1 criteria is included. So we plan a grid to sustain some kind of elements of outage, but still it should sustain. In fact, India can boast of having almost no grid disturbance for last 1 decade or so, which is a very big thing. Managing such an large integrated grid without any major grid disturbance is a very big achievement for Indian grid. And all this has been achieved by proper planning, Then by deploying proper monitoring and control mechanisms, we do have SCADA systems, supervisory control and data acquisition systems in place for more than 2 decades now. We have also gone for finer control and monitoring systems in the form of wide area measurement systems, wherein phaser measurement units are now deployed across various nodes, which also send data on sub-second level. So it's not just after every 2-3 seconds the system data is shared with the data center for taking the decisions for operations, but we do have sub-second level data now for managing the system in a more precise manner to avoid any grid disturbance or instability in looking into the large-scale integration of the renewable resources as well. Then we are also experimenting with digital substations where we have digital twins, wherein we have all the digital replica of all the kind of devices, and all the say data is sent through IT based systems, sensors to the local level for testing and all operations kind of requirements. Then we also have devices like disturbance recorder, fault locator. We have taken support for better forecasting tools so that we can predict what will be the load in a better manner so that we can accordingly plan the generation side. And also we are exploring drone-based management for proactively taking corrective action. As and when there is some fault, we can take proactive maintenance action. We have redundancy even at the equipment level. We have 1.5 breaker scheme for our substations. So already if one breaker is out, we can still maintain the supply through the tie breaker lines. So that kind of redundancy is planned in the system design as well. So there are n number of steps, and lot of efforts have been made for capacity building of the employees so that they act as per the requirement of the system, and there is no such major incident that has happened.
Absolutely,
in the
that's
last few years.
really a thing to boast up, So thank you, madam. I think Mr. Garg, so implementation of smart prepaid meters, major activities under RDSS scheme. I am just asking you the question with regulators in your, in your side. What will be the role of regulators, to make this scheme successful?
Yeah, yes. In RDSS, regulator has to play a very, very important role. First of all, the implementation of RDSS, as I think all of industries persons know, the RDSS, how much the difficulties we are facing in finalizing the things. Whether this smart metering program, whether this has to be treated as OPEX, operational expenditure, or a CAPEX, this is one of the debate which is going on. The regulator has to take a call unanimously in the country by unitedly, what is the solution for this? This is one of the most prominent problem under RDSS. Although the solutions are there, but regulator has to play their own role. This is they have to make this implementation as socially acceptable to the society. Every citizen of the country should feel that prepaid smart metering is for the benefit of them, for benefit of the society, for benefit of the country, for benefit of the distribution system, entire distribution system, for our future. So all such kind of schemes can only be developed through the regulators. They have to take approach, a balanced approach for the consumers as well as for the DISCOM. It should not be that they should favor always only to the consumer. Simultaneously, they have to keep the protection rights of the consumer also. They have to take the consumers into confidence. So this is the major role for the regulators. Side by side, regulator has also to see the pile up of the regulatory assets. There should not be any regulatory assets. The tariff orders should come out frequently, timely, so that DISCOM may not be burdened over because of all these financial issues. The regulator has to create such regulatory environment basically on the 3I principle: the investment, the innovation and the incentives. The country must get the investment, innovation must develop, and DISCOM must get the incentives. So this should be the principle to, and this is the expectations from the regulators. Thank you.
Very well said, sir. Mr. Yadav, I think in terms of the traded volumes in country right now, it's a very minuscule level as of now. So is there any initiative taken by the regulators' point of view to increase the traded volume in the country in future?
See, Electricity Act recognizes trading as a distinct activity, and that is the push which was the mandate given for trading basically. CERC has come up with various regulations like this trading regulations, trading margin regulation, then even cross-border trade of electricity regulations, all have been there. But the volume what has been happening is in 2000, presently some 195 billion units of transaction is only happening in 2023, which is about 6 to 7% of the total energy consumption of the country. To increase the volume, what has been done from time to time, and it will be kept on doing that different products has been introduced in the market. Like apart from day ahead market, that real-time market was introduced basically. So real-time market basically provides an opportunity to the generator as well as the DISCOMs to get their power source real to the real-time operation. Then if you see a separate market for green energy, GDAM, green energy day ahead market, green energy term ahead market, it has been created basically. So what happens, the RE generators basically bit into this. So it gives option to the obligated entities to fulfill their obligation. Instead of tying up in long term through some generators, they can go to the GDAM market and procure their power. So it's a venue being provided that more and more participants come to the market. And it provides for automatic switching over from the, if some generator, RE generator has bid in the market and it is not getting cleared, it automatically gets transferred to the day ahead market basically. So apart from that, term ahead markets are being created, and we have created 3 energy markets, 3 power exchanges in the country, and all of them are operating. Of course, the volumes are not equivalent in those markets basically. There are some interventions like some regulatory interventions are also done in the market, basically putting a ceiling cap of about 10 rupees in the day-ahead market. That was done with the aspect of keeping in mind the consumer interest of the country. Apart from that, high price day-ahead market has also been introduced. This has been introduced for the purpose like we are facing capacity crunch as of now. And we also know that a lot of imported coal-based generation plants are not basically scheduling their power to the full because the price is high and the buyers are not getting. So it provides an opportunity to those kind of generators to bid in the high price day-ahead market or the gas-based market because their production and their cost of ECR is quite high. So they will be coming to that market. Similarly, if you remember that power market regulations 2020-21, there was a provision that in future we will take up market coupling of the power exchanges. So currently we have come up with that staff paper on market coupling basically. So market coupling, the basic criteria is that we want to maximize the social, that economic welfare, and we increase, we want to increase the utilization of transmission corridors, which is, which in present, if we have 3 power exchanges, we have to allocate some corridor. And if it is not getting cleared, that corridor gets blocked and it is not being put to use. So all these interventions are being done, and future whatever would be required to bring the volumes numbers. So there can be more power towards that. One of the basic drivers, if you might have heard that GNA regulations are going to come into force in full swing from 1st October onwards. What GNA says, basically, if a DISCOM has a particular GNA, currently what a DISCOM does, it has LTA, long-term, it has some long-term PPAs corresponding to that, it has taken long-term access in the grid to procure that power. Then for taking short-term power from the exchange, it has to again apply for short-term open access. What GNA is doing, it's a paradigm shift. It simply talks about, I have an SS for say 1000 megawatt of grid, and I am free to source my power from any source available in the country. It is not that, oh, if I have a tie-up of such a megawatt with such generator, I have to schedule against that generator for using this LTA quantum. It has been made agnostic. So we are hoping that with GNA, a lot of generators would come in the market, and this DISCOMs would be tying up more and more power from the power exchanges, and a lot of things are happening. And if you talk in terms of waiver of transmission charges, like we are giving incentive, like if you are a DISCOM, if you have a GNA of 1000 megawatt, that 1000 megawatt, the transmission charges you have to pay is corresponding to that 1000 megawatt. In GNA sharing regulations, what we have provided, if you are able to secure your demand by procuring power from RE sources, that much percentage waiver will be giving in your GNA quantum. So naturally, this will push more demand for, presently most of the RE power are long-term tie-up, 25 years PPA. So a lot of merchant RE capacity will be coming, which will be going in the GDAM market. And with this RE waiver, a lot of DISCOMs would be also sourcing more and more power from those RE generators, which will be coming in the market. So that will be mostly procured through your power exchanges. So all these measures is going to we hope that the trade or number volume is going to increase in the power exchanges.
All these interventions.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dhar, advanced analytics is driving the business decision. Especially in the advanced countries, we have seen that data available from different sources like ERP, billing, now the smart meters. Do you think it would also play an important role in India? And if so, what are the typical business cases that can be realized with this advanced analytics, with the data available from different
very
sources?
Interesting question. Yeah, definitely. We have seen in the advanced countries that they are increasingly using data for better insights. And I am sure the same scenario is going to play out in the Indian market as well. Basically, if you look at it, the amount of data that is available has gone up drastically, and it's going to go up manifold in the future. Because with your network becoming more intelligent, with more and more devices being tracked, you are going to have a massive amount of data, which basically, I think I must tell you a saying, there's a saying, data is like oil. Unrefined, it is of no use at all. So the same thing applies to data also. If you have a lot of data, it's garbage. Until unless you can really bring insight out of that. And that is where the analytics tools are needed to achieve that. See, already organizations like NTPC have already had a good beginning in terms of having their own dashboards and tracking some of the parameters. I think the refinement will happen more. There will be more KPIs identified. Like just before this discussion, I was discussing with him on ESG. They have started tracking their ESG. This was never thought of ever before. So this is going to increase. So we will have very important KPIs being tracked at minute levels, which can only be done through analytic tools. So I think that is the business case that will come definitely.
Absolutely, and I think as SAP, you have a lot of role to play there as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So taking track of the time, we have hardly 3 minutes left. So I am beginning the round 4. It's mainly so far we have discussed about the business and energy industry parameters. Let's switch for the round 4 the IT because I am not going to do justice for my company if I don't ask questions from IT. So sir, I think Mr. Prakash, so far we have discussed the challenges, opportunities in the generation sector. So what is your view in the role of IT and automation? I think NTPC is one of the early adopter of the IT and automation. So
Yes.
so can you please actually
Yeah, we are running short of time.
I
but,
think they will allow us in another 5 minutes.
Okay. Then I will share a very interesting story. So we have a power plant in Jharkhand, so which we have acquired from some Jharkhand State Electricity Board. So once I happened to visit that power plant, and thermal power plant has different levels, and they had a wonderful communication system between top level and ground level. So there is a vertical hollow pipe with mouthpieces at both the ends. So somebody has to first knock at the pipe, that was a ringtone, and then speak in that mouthpiece. So that was 50-60-year-old power plant, now it is defunct. And now NTPC is thinking of digitally printing some of its spares. So that is the journey power sector has completed so far, but still there is a lot of scope. So whatever Manoj has said, I cannot go beyond that in terms of digitization application of IT, but I will definitely add one thing which has been missed by him and maybe by many people. I have a power plant which is 40 years old, more than 40 years old, that is Singrauli. Yes. Okay. Now if I need a spare, so I have to look for its design, either it is in print or maximum PDF if I had scanned. So why can't I digitize all the components, spares, and think of means optimizing their use or replacing those things with similar things. So in terms of hardware assets also we should think of whether it's a power plant machinery, whether it's a coal assets, whether it's a water assets. How it's not only if somebody is observing, means there is a observation and there is a control, but we have to understand the system, advise the system, and convert mortal things into a digital form. So that is, I think, next level. Thank you.
Very well said, sir. Thank you, sir. Madam, I think similar question to you. Maybe we can have some brief discussion on this. Yeah.
Actually, IT plays a very critical role. Let me share that I was also part of Power Grid IT division for almost a decade, starting from 2003 till 2011 or so. And lot of business process engineering activities were taken up with the support of IT tools and solutions that were available, be it project management, be it asset management. And we were at the time exploring which ERP solution should be deployed in the company. But before ERP deployment, we need to have data, because ERP solutions will not run if the data is not really sanitized and is available for that ERP system to function. So a lot of in-house applications and all were being developed, and all that has helped Power Grid to manage its systems in a very efficient manner. From that time to this date, we have full ERP implemented for all the domains in the company. We also have business decision-making dashboards specifically for asset management. Now we have drone-based patrolling mechanism in place. We have, they take images of the assets which are spread across various geographical locations, and based on some AI algorithms, they figure out whether there is some fault at particular location, and we can then send that crew to replace that faulty part in a more speedy manner. Also, for project management, project planning, all those tools are definitely required for any organization to be ahead of their competitors. And Power Grid is one of the leaders, I must say, in that. We have knowledge management solutions, asset management, project management, each and every solution that is available, and also the dashboards for the management for decision making. So those things are available.
Yeah, absolutely, madam. We are having a dedicated session from in the second half from Power Grid, for the mobile asset management related initiative that we have taken. Sir, Mr. Garg, I think quickly, sir, if you can discuss some of the future IT initiative in the distribution sector per se, that will shape up.
Yeah, particularly all things what are to be done in the future, all are related to basically all IT. Only all things depend on the IT solution in the distribution sector. You see, the 25 crore smart meters has to be installed in the country. All smart meters have to have IT solutions. Either it has to be connected to the MDM, the data has to be, lot of huge data has to be developed. So analysis of these data, you see, just I want to share one thing. REC conduct a exercise of Powerthon. Under the Powerthon, some startups were called for demonstration of their technology or like that. Even we saw few startups have shown miracle results out of lakhs of crores of data. They sanitized the data of few consumers, which resulted a huge loss to the DISCOM. So this is the power of the IT. Only IT solutions can provide. Meter, billing, each and everything is the only IT. We have to develop the IT system very well. That is the say. And SAP is doing well, I think.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Mr. Yadav, quickly, I think, maybe quickly, if you can say something on the new grid, electricity grid code, that is going to be published probably in the October, right? And, what are the element if the ITs in that, if you just quickly go through that.
See, IGC basically it's a mother document for operation of the grid. But what, keeping your perspective in the view, this IGC is going to create a institutional mechanism of QCAs. Okay. They are qualified coordinating agencies. What they will do basically, we have small RE. So forecasting, that error would be there if you see at individual level. This QCAs will be basically scheduling and deviation settlement. It will be done on behalf of them basically.
Okay.
So basically they will be kind of aggregator who will be doing the process of forecasting, scheduling, settlement on behalf of those small RE generators. So that institutional mechanism has been created. Then you must be knowing that.
So that's basically, sir, sorry to interrupt you, that's basically a huge application of the IT implementation there. Actually,
yeah,
because everything is IT in that case, right?
Yeah, IT in that case, because they have to install forecasting, they have to bring data to some centralized place, and they have to do scheduling, they have to do deviation settlement, all those things are there. Then apart from that, grid elements, we have substation. Substation has got a control center, control room. So it basically communicates with the load dispatch center. What we are trying to say is that there are now you must be knowing that all the things are happening through bidding, tariff-based competitive bidding. So there may be many entities who are participating in the transmission system, but the transmission system does not include a substation basically. It is only a line. Grid code mandates that they have also to maintain some control centers, basically, coordination. So basically those kind of people, they have to create some control center. Even that QCS, they have to make some control center which will be communicating with the RLDCs. And even provisions for cyber security. That has been mandated, and all the entities have to comply with the cyber security as per the act, as per the guidelines that is being issued by CEA basically. So all these mechanisms are there. Even for secondary, like what are the qualifying criteria for giving a secondary ancillary reserve services? The basic criteria is that it has to have a bi-directional communication with the RLDC. It should be AGC enabled. All these are IT requirement only basically. So all the entities which are going to connect in the system, they have to comply with the communication standard, standard. They have to, metering requirement has to be there. Your telemetry, SCADA telemetry requirement has to be there. So all these are going to drive the demand for this IT related equipments and solutions which you as a industry would be offering to them.
Absolutely, sir. Very interesting to know all this. So, Mr. Dhar, I think last question to you for the session today. So, you talked about IT applications, the real-time analytics, all these things. But one other aspect is that is going has changed over the years is the IT deployment criteria. So, we have seen that earlier it was on-prem services from the IT. Now, more and more cloud deployment with agility in place, with SaaS-based approach has been taken care globally. So how do you think the cloud provisioning in Indian utilities perspective? What is your view on that?
Before I answer that, I want to add one important aspect into this discussion.
Yeah.
It is the advent of IoT and that telecom strengthening in terms of the 5G, 6G networks
Correct.
coming in.
Absolutely.
You are going to have a fantastic facility of collecting a lot of data on the devices, which will also change the way you, as a regulator, monitor the whole system and discoms operate and so this is aspect which is definitely going to create a huge amount of data, and that is where the role of the data center will get diminished, because at the end of the day, scalability is a limitation for in-house data centers. You need flexibility in terms of scaling, and that can only be provided by the cloud operators, the SaaS or whatever we call them. But at the same time, I must highlight that it is not such an easy thing that you just switch over to cloud tomorrow, because there are many issues in terms of performance tuning. You may land up with a huge bill in a particular month because somebody has made some mistake of running some application. So those challenges are there. And then the last thing is most critical, data security.
Yeah.
So you simply can't say that there is a one size fit all solution where everybody just goes to cloud and it's done. No, it will be a hybrid. You have to choose which applications you want to run on cloud. You have to determine what are the very sensitive applications which you do not wish to put on cloud, and a hybrid solution has to be evolved. But yes, largely there will be higher investments in terms of usage of cloud, and organizations have to look in terms of how to harness the power of cloud in order to go forward.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Very well taken. So that concludes our session. I believe it's a very interesting session. Please give a very big hand to all our panelists. I think everybody has got some key takeaway from these sessions. Probably we do not have any time for taking questions.